Ladies and gentlemen, relationships are delicate, deeply intertwined systems of trust, responsibility, and emotional investment. They demand honesty because honesty is the bedrock upon which a meaningful connection is built. But when that trust is broken, when infidelity enters the picture, it shakes the entire foundation. What happens when a man cheats? What does he say when confronted? Often the first words out of his mouth aren't an admission of guilt or an apology. No, they are far more calculated, though not necessarily in a conscious sense. These words are a reflection of the human propensity to avoid pain and accountability. When a man cheats, his immediate reaction when confronted is often a swift denial of the accusation. This is not just a casual dismissal, but a deeply ingrained human response to avoid the discomfort of exposure. "I didn't do it, you're imagining things," or "how could you even think that of me?" These are the classic lines of deflection, aimed at shifting attention away from the wrongdoing. Denial serves as a shield. It's a psychological reflex that protects the individual from the immediate repercussions of their actions. In the short term, denying the truth allows the cheater to avoid the emotional fallout, the confrontation, and the shame that comes with admitting betrayal. However, this denial is not neutral. It's an act of deliberate manipulation, and its purpose is to create doubt in the mind of the person being deceived. Deflection often works hand in hand with denial. Once the cheater has denied their actions, the next step is to redirect the conversation, often by turning the blame onto the accuser. "Why are you so paranoid? You've always been insecure," or "you're just looking for reasons to fight with me." These statements are crafted to make the accuser question their own perceptions and feelings. What's happening here is a subtle but powerful form of emotional manipulation. The cheater knows that the accusation alone is emotionally charged, and instead of addressing the substance of it, they aim to destabilize the one bringing it up. By framing the accuser as irrational or overly emotional, the cheater attempts to position themselves as the calm and reasonable party. This shift in narrative is designed to take the focus off their behavior and onto the supposed flaws of the accuser. Another form of deflection comes in the guise of outrage. A cheating man might react with exaggerated anger, exclaiming, "How dare you accuse me of something like that?" or "I can't believe you don't trust me." This feigned indignation is meant to throw the accuser off balance, making them feel guilty for even bringing up the suspicion. The emotional weight of such an accusation is then turned back onto the accuser, forcing them to defend their feelings rather than press the issue further. The denial and deflection extend beyond emotional manipulation into the realm of calculated deceit. A man who has cheated may go to great lengths to fabricate alibis, alter evidence, or provide seemingly logical explanations for his suspicious behavior. "I was working late, that's just a friend from college," or "You must have misunderstood the message." These statements are carefully constructed to sound plausible, but their purpose is singular: to maintain the illusion of innocence. It's important to note that denial and deflection are not always premeditated strategies. Often they are instinctive reactions born out of fear of being exposed, fear of losing the relationship, and fear of facing the consequences. But while these reactions may be human, they are also deeply damaging. They erode trust, create confusion, and inflict emotional harm on the partner who is already grappling with the possibility of betrayal. The psychological impact of this tactic cannot be overstated. Denial and deflection leave the betrayed partner questioning their own intuition, their judgment, and even their sanity. Am I overreacting? Did I misinterpret the signs? These are the questions that start to haunt the mind of the person on the receiving end of this behavior. This internal conflict can be profoundly destabilizing as it undermines the very foundation of self-trust. Denial and deflection often prolong the cycle of pain. When a cheater refuses to acknowledge their actions, the issue remains unresolved, festering beneath the surface. The betrayed partner may feel compelled to keep digging for answers, replaying conversations, and analyzing every interaction in an effort to uncover the truth. This endless search for clarity can be emotionally exhausting, trapping the individual in a state of perpetual doubt and anxiety. What's especially insidious about denial and deflection is that they are not merely defensive tactics, they are also offensive maneuvers. By denying and deflecting, the cheater seeks to regain control of the narrative. They aim to silence the accusations, suppress the partner's concerns, and maintain their position of power in the relationship. In doing so, they exploit the emotional vulnerability of the very person they have betrayed. The dynamic of denial and deflection also speaks to a broader issue: the avoidance of accountability. Admitting to infidelity requires confronting one's own moral failings, acknowledging the harm caused, and taking responsibility for the consequences. For many, this level of introspection and accountability is deeply uncomfortable. It forces them to reckon with the gap between their actions and their values, a gap that is often easier to ignore than to address. Denial and deflection are therefore not just acts of self-preservation, they are acts of avoidance. They allow the cheater to postpone the reckoning, to delay the moment when they must face not only their partner's pain but also their own internal contradictions. This avoidance, however, comes at a cost. It deepens the wounds of betrayal, erodes the possibility of reconciliation, and perpetuates a cycle of dishonesty that undermines the very fabric of the relationship. When confronted with the reality of their actions, a cheating man often turns to another tactic: evasion of responsibility. This is not simply an avoidance of guilt, it's an attempt to reframe the situation in a way that diminishes the severity of the betrayal. It wasn't a big deal, it didn't mean anything, or it was just a mistake, or common refrains designed to trivialize the act and pacify the person they've hurt. The first layer of this evasion lies in minimization. By downplaying the significance of the infidelity, the cheater tries to reduce the emotional weight of the situation. It didn't mean anything. It becomes a way of saying that the act should not be taken seriously, as though the absence of emotional involvement somehow negates the breach of trust. However, this argument fails to address the core issue. Infidelity isn't just about physical or emotional engagement with another person, it's about breaking the implicit contract of trust that forms the foundation of any committed relationship. Minimization also serves as a defense mechanism for the cheater. By insisting that the betrayal was insignificant, they attempt to shield themselves from the full scope of their partner's pain. It's a way of managing the emotional fallout by compartmentalizing the act, framing it as a one-time lapse in judgment, rather than a reflection of deeper issues in their behavior or character. Another layer of evasion comes in the form of justification. A cheating man may shift the focus away from his actions and toward external circumstances, offering excuses that paint him as a victim of his own situation. I was stressed, we've been fighting a lot, or I felt neglected, or common justifications. These statements are not necessarily outright lies, they often stem from genuine feelings of dissatisfaction or emotional strain. However, they are wielded as tools to redirect attention away from the betrayal and onto the supposed reasons behind it. The problem with these justifications is that they blur the line between explanation and excuse. While it's true that external factors can create tension or dissatisfaction in a relationship, they do not absolve an individual of their choices. Stress, conflict, or feelings of neglect may be catalysts for infidelity, but they are not causes. Cheating is a deliberate decision, one that involves crossing boundaries and violating trust. Attempting to frame it as an inevitable consequence of external pressures is a way of evading the personal responsibility inherent in that decision. Evasion of responsibility often includes a subtle shift in blame. A cheating man might imply or outright state that his partner bears some responsibility for his actions. You've been so distant you don't pay attention to me anymore, or I didn't feel appreciated. There are statements that attempt to distribute the accountability for the betrayal. While it's true that relationship dynamics involve both parties, this kind of blame shifting is inherently unfair. It places the burden of the cheater's actions on the shoulders of the person they've betrayed, compounding the emotional harm already inflicted. This tactic of blame shifting is particularly damaging because it taps into the insecurities of the betrayed partner. It encourages them to question their own behavior, wondering if they truly failed in some way that drove their partner to cheat. This introspection, while natural, often leads to misplaced guilt diverting attention away from the cheater's actions and onto the perceived shortcomings of the person who has been wronged. Evasion of responsibility takes the form of false repentance. A cheating man might quickly offer apologies or promises of change without truly acknowledging the depth of the harm caused. "I'll never do it again, I've learned my lesson," or "Can we just move past this?" Are statements designed to placate the betrayed partner and move the conversation toward reconciliation. While these promises may sound sincere, they often lack the substantive reflection and accountability necessary for true repair. False repentance is not about genuine remorse, it's about damage control. The cheater seeks to restore the status quo without confronting the underlying issues that led to the betrayal in the first place. This superficial approach to reconciliation is another way of evading responsibility, as it prioritizes immediate resolution over long-term accountability and growth. Another tactic of evasion is to question the boundaries of the relationship itself. A cheating man might argue, "I didn't know we were so serious, I thought we were on a break," or "I didn't think it would hurt you." These statements attempt to blur the lines of commitment, reframing the betrayal as a misunderstanding rather than a deliberate act of disloyalty. By casting doubt on the expectations of the relationship, the cheater tries to dilute their accountability and shift the focus onto the supposed ambiguity of the situation. What makes evasion of responsibility so insidious is its ability to prolong the cycle of dishonesty. Rather than facing the consequences of their actions, the cheater creates a web of half-truths, excuses, and justifications that obscure the reality of the situation. This not only deepens the wounds of the betrayed partner, but also prevents meaningful resolution, as the core issue and unwillingness to take ownership of one's choices remains unaddressed. One of the most destructive tactics he may employ is gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where the perpetrator seeks to distort reality and make the other person question their own perceptions, memories, or instincts. It's not merely an attempt to avoid responsibility, it's an active effort to dismantle the other person's confidence in their ability to interpret events accurately. This tactic is both deeply harmful and profoundly insidious, as it leaves the victim questioning not just the relationship but their very sense of reality. But it goes beyond a simple rejection of accusations. Instead of saying "that didn't happen," the cheater might say "you're imagining things" or "you're being paranoid." These statements aren't just dismissive, they are carefully designed to make the betrayed partner doubt their instincts. The cheater's goal is to shift the focus from their own actions to the supposed rationality of the accuser. By framing the partner as overly suspicious or emotionally unstable, the cheater undermines their credibility and shifts attention away from their own wrongdoing. Gaslighting often starts subtly. The cheater may question small details or challenge the partner's memory of events. For example, if the partner mentions a suspicious message or behavior, the cheater might respond with, "I don't remember that," or "you must have misunderstood." These statements plant seeds of doubt, encouraging the partner to second-guess their own observations. Over time, this subtle manipulation can grow into a pervasive sense of uncertainty, where the partner begins to question not just specific events but their ability to perceive reality accurately. One of the most potent tools in gaslighting is feigned confusion. A cheating man might act as though the accusation is completely baffling or absurd, responding with phrases like, "I have no idea what you're talking about," or "Why would you even think that?" This feigned ignorance serves two purposes. It portrays the cheater as innocent and reasonable while casting the accuser as irrational and unreasonable. The more sincerely the cheater performs this confusion, the more likely the partner is to doubt their own suspicions. Another hallmark of gaslighting is the deliberate reframing of events. A cheater might take an incident that raised suspicion and reinterpret it in a way that absolves them of wrongdoing. For instance, if a partner questions why they were out late, the cheater might say, "I told you I was working late. You never listened to me." This not only dismisses the partner's concerns, but also shifts the blame onto them, making it seem as though they are the ones at fault for misunderstanding or not paying attention. Gaslighting can also involve creating entirely false narratives. A cheating man might fabricate explanations or scenarios to cover up his behavior, presenting them with such confidence that they seem plausible. For example, if confronted about a suspicious interaction, he might say, "That's just a coworker I've been helping with a project," or, "You know how my friends joke around like that." These fabricated stories are often detailed enough to seem convincing, but their purpose is to overwrite the partner's reality with a false version that benefits the cheater. Gaslighting escalates to direct attacks on the partner's character. A cheating man might accuse his partner of being overly controlling, jealous, or insecure. Statements like, "You're always looking for problems where there aren't any," or "Your insecurities are ruining this relationship," are designed to put the partner on the defensive. This tactic not only deflects attention from the cheater's behavior, but also shifts the power dynamic, positioning the cheater as the rational, stable one in the relationship. The emotional toll of gaslighting is profound. Over time, the betrayed partner may begin to internalize the cheater's narrative, doubting their own instincts and feeling increasingly disoriented. This can lead to a state of confusion and self-doubt, where the partner struggles to differentiate between what they know to be true and what they are being told. In severe cases, gaslighting can erode a person's confidence to the point where they feel unable to trust their own judgment about anything, not just the relationship. Gaslighting is not only a tactic of avoidance, it's a means of control. By distorting reality, the cheater seeks to maintain power over the situation and manipulate the partner's emotions. This control often extends beyond the immediate conflict, as the partner's growing self-doubt makes them more susceptible to future manipulation. The cheater's ability to dictate the narrative becomes a tool for preserving the relationship on their terms, even as they continue to act dishonestly. What makes gaslighting particularly damaging is its cumulative effect. Each instance of manipulation might seem minor in isolation, but together they create a web of doubt and confusion that is difficult to escape. The partner may find themselves trapped in a cycle of questioning their own perceptions, seeking reassurance from the very person who is deceiving them. This cycle deepens the emotional harm as the partner becomes increasingly reliant on the cheater for validation, even as their trust continues to be eroded. Gaslighting is not just a betrayal of trust, it is an attack on the partner's sense of self. By systematically undermining their confidence and distorting their reality, the cheater inflicts harm that goes far beyond the act of infidelity itself. The scars left by gaslighting can linger long after the truth is revealed, as the partner struggles to rebuild their confidence and regain their trust in their own perceptions. One of the most effective strategies he may employ to diffuse the situation is an appeal to sympathy. This tactic operates on the principle of emotional redirection, shifting the focus away from the harm caused by his actions and toward his own suffering or vulnerability. Rather than addressing the betrayal directly, the cheater positions himself as a victim of circumstance, seeking to elicit empathy from the person he has wronged. The appeal to sympathy often begins with an explanation of personal struggles. "I've been under so much stress lately," or "You don't understand how hard things have been for me," are common phrases. These statements are crafted to create a narrative where the cheater's behavior is framed not as a deliberate choice but as a response to overwhelming external pressures. By highlighting his struggles, he attempts to evoke compassion, steering the conversation away from accountability and toward understanding. This approach relies on the innate human tendency to empathize with those in pain. When someone expresses vulnerability, especially someone we care about, it's natural to want to offer comfort or reassurance. The cheating man leverages this impulse, using his partner's compassion as a shield against the anger or disappointment his actions have provoked. In doing so, he shifts the emotional dynamic of the confrontation, transforming himself from the perpetrator into someone who appears to be suffering just as much or more than the person he has hurt. Another layer of this tactic involves reframing the betrayal as a symptom of deeper emotional turmoil. A cheating man might say, "I felt so alone," or "I didn't know how to deal with everything I was going through." These statements are designed to position the act of infidelity as a coping mechanism rather than a moral failure. By doing so, he redirects the conversation from the consequences of his actions to the underlying pain or dissatisfaction he claims to have experienced. This reframing subtly suggests that the betrayal was not truly about the partner or the relationship, but was instead a misguided attempt to deal with personal struggles. The appeal to sympathy can also take the form of regret or self-loathing. "I hate myself for what I did," or "I can't believe I let myself become this person," are common expressions. These statements serve a dual purpose. On one hand, they convey remorse, which can disarm the partner's anger. On the other hand, they shift the focus onto the cheater's feelings, inviting the partner to console him rather than pressing for accountability. By presenting himself as tormented by guilt, the cheater attempts to create the impression that he has already suffered enough, thus discouraging further confrontation. The cheater may go further, invoking past traumas or hardships as a way to contextualize his behavior. "You know what I've been through," or "I've been carrying so much from my past," are statements that aim to link the betrayal to a history of unresolved pain. This tactic is particularly potent because it draws on the partner's existing knowledge of the cheater's vulnerabilities. It creates a sense of inevitability, as though the infidelity were less a choice and more an unfortunate consequence of circumstances beyond his control. This strategy often includes subtle or overt comparisons. The cheater might say, "You've been through hard times too. You know how it feels to make mistakes." These comparisons are meant to level the emotional playing field, suggesting that the partner should extend the same understanding or forgiveness that they themselves might hope for in a moment of weakness. This shifts the conversation from one of accountability to one of shared human fallibility, effectively diluting the weight of the betrayal. The appeal to sympathy is also frequently accompanied by promises of change. Statements like, "I just need help to get through this," or "If you stay with me, I'll work on myself," serve to paint the cheater as someone who is not beyond redemption. These promises tap into the partner's desire to see the relationship repaired, offering a glimmer of hope that the situation can improve. However, they are often framed in a way that places the burden of emotional labor on the partner, who is implicitly expected to support the cheater through this supposed transformation. The appeal to sympathy is a strategy of emotional redirection. It seeks to turn the betrayed partner's feelings of anger or hurt into feelings of concern and compassion. This redirection not only alleviates the immediate tension of the confrontation, but also creates a dynamic where the partner feels compelled to prioritize the cheater's emotional well-being over their own. By framing himself as a victim, the cheater effectively shifts the roles in the relationship, making the betrayed partner feel responsible for his healing rather than holding him accountable for his actions. What makes this tactic so damaging is its ability to blur the lines between genuine vulnerability and manipulative behavior. While the emotions expressed during an appeal to sympathy may be real, they are often presented in a way that serves to deflect accountability rather than foster genuine communication. This leaves the partner in a state of emotional confusion, torn between their empathy for the cheater's struggles and their own need for acknowledgement and resolution. By appealing to sympathy, the cheater creates a narrative where the focus shifts away from the harm they've caused and toward their own pain. This narrative not only delays the confrontation of the betrayal, but also places the partner in a position of emotional compromise, where their desire to support and empathize conflicts with their need for justice and clarity. When a man cheats and the truth surfaces, a frequent response is to rush into quick reconciliation efforts. This approach involves hasty attempts to resolve the issue, often without fully addressing the emotional depth of the betrayal or the root causes behind it. These efforts are typically aimed at soothing immediate tensions, avoiding deeper scrutiny, and restoring the status quo as swiftly as possible. While they may appear as gestures of remorse and commitment, they often mask an underlying reluctance to engage in the difficult work of genuine accountability and healing. One of the most common forms of quick reconciliation is the immediate promise of change. A cheating man might say, "I'll never do it again," or "I've learned my lesson." These declarations are delivered with urgency, designed to reassure the betrayed partner that the betrayal was an isolated incident and will not happen again. While such promises can provide a temporary sense of relief, they often lack the substance necessary to rebuild trust. Without concrete actions to back them up, these assurances can feel hollow, serving more as a way to placate the partner than to address the underlying issues. Quick reconciliation efforts often include exaggerated displays of affection or commitment. The cheater might suddenly become overly attentive, showering their partner with gifts, compliments, or grand romantic gestures. These acts, while superficially appealing, can feel incongruous with the gravity of the situation. They create a sense of emotional whiplash as the betrayed partner struggles to reconcile these sudden outpourings of love with the pain of betrayal. While these gestures might momentarily ease the tension, they do little to address the deeper emotional wounds caused by infidelity. Another hallmark of quick reconciliation is the insistence on moving forward without delving into the details of what happened. The cheating man might say, "Can we just put this behind us?" Or "Let's focus on the future," instead of dwelling on the past. This approach minimizes the importance of understanding the betrayal, dismissing the partner's need for clarity and validation. By attempting to leapfrog over the hard conversations, the cheater prioritizes their own discomfort over the partner's need for emotional processing and closure. This strategy often includes deflecting attention from the betrayal itself to the cheater's desire to repair the relationship. Statements like, "I just want us to be happy again," or "I can't stand to see us like this," shift the focus away from the pain caused and onto the cheater's supposed commitment to making things right. While this may seem like a positive step, it often bypasses the accountability and introspection necessary for genuine reconciliation. Instead of engaging in meaningful dialogue, the cheater seeks to fast-track the process, hoping that gestures of goodwill will suffice to mend the damage. Quick reconciliation efforts may also involve an attempt to minimize the betrayal's impact. A cheating man might say it was a mistake or it didn't mean anything, in an effort to downplay the emotional weight of his actions. By framing the infidelity as a lapse in judgment rather than a deliberate breach of trust, he seeks to make the situation appear less severe. This minimization is often paired with an expectation that the partner should forgive and move on more quickly, as though the absence of intent somehow negates the harm caused. Quick reconciliation takes the form of seeking forgiveness without engaging in true self-reflection. The cheater might express remorse, saying, "I'm so sorry for what I did," but stop short of examining why they made the choices they did or how they plan to change. While apologies are an important part of the healing process, they are not a substitute for accountability. Without a willingness to confront the deeper issues that led to the betrayal, these apologies can feel performative, aimed more at alleviating guilt than at repairing the relationship. Another tactic often employed is shifting the responsibility for reconciliation onto the betrayed partner. The cheater might say, "What can I do to make this right?" or "Tell me what you need from me." While these statements might appear as gestures of willingness to work on the relationship, they can place an undue burden on the partner to guide the process of healing. This approach absolves the cheater of the responsibility to take initiative, instead making the betrayed partner feel as though it is their job to define the path forward. A cheating man might also attempt to accelerate reconciliation by pointing to the strength of the relationship's history. Statements like, "We've been through so much together," or "Don't let this one mistake ruin everything we've built," appeal to the partner's sense of loyalty and shared experiences. While it is natural to value the longevity and depth of a relationship, this tactic can be manipulative, as it implies that the betrayal should be weighed against the relationship's positives rather than addressed on its own terms. What makes quick reconciliation efforts particularly damaging is their superficial nature. While they may provide a temporary reprieve from the emotional intensity of the situation, they often fail to address the deeper wounds left by infidelity. By rushing the process of healing, the cheater avoids the discomfort of accountability and introspection, leaving unresolved issues to fester beneath the surface. For the betrayed partner, this can create a lingering sense of dissatisfaction, as the emotional complexity of their pain is overlooked in favor of expedient solutions. These efforts, while often framed as acts of love or commitment, can feel more like a strategy for damage control than a genuine attempt at reconciliation. They prioritize the restoration of normalcy over the hard work of rebuilding trust, leaving the betrayed partner to grapple with unresolved emotions and unanswered questions. In conclusion, when a man cheats and is confronted, his first words often serve as an attempt to deflect responsibility, minimize the betrayal, and manipulate the emotional dynamics of the situation. Whether through denial, gaslighting, appeals to sympathy, or quick reconciliation efforts, these responses aim to protect the cheater from the full consequences of his actions. Instead of taking accountability and allowing the partner to heal, these tactics seek to shift the focus away from the betrayal and onto the cheater's own narrative. Ultimately, such responses highlight a deeper failure to understand the gravity of infidelity and its emotional impact.